centrally.
Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. I'm calling you logged in from a rainy Grays Lake, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago. Weather has cooled off, which is nice, and I'm looking forward to giving you a quick overview of the agency brokerage business simulation. What I want to do is give a few PowerPoint introductory slides, and then we'll jump right into the simulation so you can see some of the analytics that go on during the competition and some of the decisions that the teams are forced to make during each of the rounds of the competition. An overview of the process of the business challenge is on the screen right now. Each team of about 4, 5, 6 individuals will be given an insurance brokerage to run, and they're going to run that brokerage in competition with other teams in the same marketplace. This is a direct competition, so what one agency does will impact the performance of other agencies. So in addition to understanding what your business is about and what the marketplace has to offer in terms of opportunities, you need to keep an eye on the competitors because they will drive the market in different directions and your results in different directions. The teams control the entire business, so they manage the entire P&L and the entire balance sheet. They set strategy. They invest in developing competencies. They spend time trying to figure out which markets they want to represent, so they try to get appointments with various carriers. They manage their focus on customers, so which customer segments are most important to them. They will do source management, which is trying to decide which centers of influence they go to try to drive new business. They have to staff the agencies by hiring, firing people, as well as setting compensation structure, and then they have to provide overall management of the capital and the investments of the agency by taking care of the debt as well as issuing dividends, that type of stuff. What we typically do in a classroom-based format is we will run a round of competition, and then we'll follow it up by a debrief of the results and then some lecture content on some things that will help the teams better understand what they're doing, better understand the financial reports that are coming out. So there's different lectures that can be given in between all the rounds of this competition. The setup for the competition is kind of simple. We tell everybody that an uncle is handing down his business to them. Before they should thank him for the business, they should take a look at that business, do a SWOT analysis on the business, and try to figure out what is good and bad. The business typically starts off in not too good of condition, and so there's a lot of room for improvement over the multiple years of the competition. Once the teams have gone through the SWOT analysis and they figured out what's good and bad, they then have a discussion about what should our goals and objectives be. Are we going to try to grow the revenues of the business? We're going to try to grow bottom line profitability. We're going to try to grow EBITDA. We're going to try to improve customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction. So they have to come up with some kind of a business plan for the duration of the competition. The competition can run anywhere from 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So that's something that you guys can decide. I would suggest you run at least a 4-year competition so that you give the decisions time to play out and provide impact on the results of the business. Once they've assessed where they're at, once they've established where they want to go, then there are some obvious gaps between where they currently are and where they want to be at the end of, let's say, year 5. They then need to create a plan of strategies and tactics that will help eliminate the gaps between where they are and where they want to be. And then each round, they execute that plan by making decisions within the simulation. So that's kind of an overview of the process. They are leading and managing this business throughout the 4 years. So just to summarize the process, broken up into several teams, each team is running a brokerage. At the end of every round, they get results in the form of an industry newspaper that compares all the teams on a number of different key performance indicators, including revenue, profitability, customer satisfaction, etc. And then at the end of several years, a winner is announced based upon who ran the best company. And there's a lot of discussion that we could have when you decide to go forward as to how you define the best company. And it's something that each state perhaps or each competition we could change as we roll it out. So that's kind of the process. And then we see on this screen is kind of a high-level view of the home screen of the simulation, and where the teams return to this home screen in order to access the different data in order to do some analysis on the marketplace or the competitors or the customers, as well as then to access the decision-making areas. And so the decisions are surround carrier and markets management, customer management, source management, staffing and sales management, and then finally financial management. I'm going to switch now to a live shot of the simulation. So if you're watching on the computer, you should see that come up. On the bottom right of this screen, you'll see what the current net profit forecast for this business is. The first round of the competition is year 2021. We place people in the future because we want them to use the data analytics that we're giving them in the simulation to drive their decisions and their assessments as to what's good and bad. We don't want them to be worrying about what's happening in the year 2015. So 2021 is the start of the competition. At the end of round one, it becomes 2022. Everything you've done good and bad moves forward with you. So if you lost a lot of producers in round one, you then have to hire more producers in round two to continue to run a profitable business. If you invested in training and development in round one, you get the full impact of the improved skills in round two. So each round progresses and advances the competition 1 year. You can see on the bottom right, it says the net profit forecast, currently showing $231,000. That's forecasting what the likely outcome or what the likely performance from a profit perspective of this brokerage will be at the end of 2021, given all the decisions that have been entered in the computer. However, if the teams go in and hire somebody, or if the teams go in and change compensation, or if the teams go in and do more prospecting and spend more money, they can come back out and immediately will be told what the profit forecast impact is going to be based upon those decisions. As they get more sophisticated in running the business, they're going to want more detail than just profitability. There's an income statement tab. When I click on the income statement, I now get a full-blown income statement for that particular year, for that team, showing all the revenues as well as all the expense items. All of these items will move up or down based upon the decisions that are being made. So this is real-time, interactive. If they make a decision, they don't like the forecasted impact, they can always go back and undo that decision. No decision is locked in until the very end of the competition round. Then, if you want to get into discussions about the balance sheet, there is a balance sheet that is in the competition. And so, there's debt, there's cash, there's investments, there's receivables, all of that type of stuff. With your audience, I don't know how much balance sheet discussions you're going to want to try to drive, but that is there because it's part of the business. It's something we use in our corporate classes. Whenever you're done on a particular screen, you can always go back to the home screen by clicking the home button in the upper left-hand corner of the business. So all we've done so far is just taken a look at what our current forecasted financials are. In the middle of the screen here, you can see this is where I go to get a lot of data. So there's a lot of analytics in the middle of the screen. I can get analytics on my competitors. I can get analytics on my customers, on the lead sources, profitability of the customers themselves, as well as some production statistics. As an example, I'm going to go into customer analysis. When I go into customer analysis, I can see here that we've got 3 different types of customers. We've got the commercial customers across the top. Bottom left, we've got the personal customers, and bottom right, we've got the benefits customers. There are different customer segments, commercial, personal, and benefits, and those customer segments have different care-abouts or different sensitivities to various attributes of the solution the agency is offering to sell them. They have sensitivities to the price, which would be the rate they're paying for the insurance. They have sensitivities to reputation of the agency, so this is your past customer satisfaction and what your brand is. They have sensitivities to your expertise in terms of the skill sets of your employees, sensitivity to the value-added services that you're offering because you're making decisions to perhaps offer more value-added services like loss control, safety seminars, etc., to certain customer segments versus others. And they also have sensitivity to which carriers you're offering products from, and specifically what kind of coverages those carriers offer, from broader coverages to more conservative coverages. This data can change each and every year, and it will really help feed the SWOT analysis as the students sit down and try to figure out where are the big opportunities in the marketplace, which customers do we want to go after, and if we go after a particular customer, do we go after them more with a price play, more with an expertise play, more with a value-added services play? Because the better I align, the offer that I'm giving to a particular customer segment, the better I'm going to be at retaining business from that customer, as well as the better I'll be at attracting new customers of that type. I'm given information on the total available market for those customers, the average premium, as well as the organic growth rate of those customers. So a lot of data is here that can drive really good discussions about a marketplace and more attractive customer segments versus others. There are no decisions on the screen. This is simply data that will help feed decisions that I then make on different screens. So that's one area that you can go into to actually get some analysis or get some data that can help you gain some insights into the marketplace. Let me jump now down here to the, well, let me quickly review. Carrier and markets management. If I go into carrier and markets management, this is where I can make a decision to appoint a new carrier, or at least attempt to appoint a new carrier. Teams will start off with 4 carriers where they can place business, but if they decide to, they can request appointments with additional carriers that bring different strengths in terms of coverages, as well as pricing, as well as commission revenue to me. So there's lots of differences between all these carriers, and I may want to, align myself with a different carrier for a different reason. Staffing and sales management is an area I can go to where I can hire and fire my producers if I need to. It's also where I can train my producers to be better at generating leads or renewing business or servicing accounts. I can also specify what are the activities my producers are spending their time in by setting some of their time blocks here. More time spent in lead generation is more success in driving new leads and new business, but that means there's less time being spent in some other area of the business. So that's staffing and sales management. Source management I'm not going to go into right now, but this is where I can now focus my producers to concentrate on certain sources, certain lead sources that might give me better access to types of customers. So some customers come from some centers of influence more than they would come from other centers of influence. So that's where I would allocate those resources and focus those producers. Customer management I go into. This is where customer by customer, as you can see them all listed here, I can decide to train my employees to better understand those customers. I can set the service levels that we're going to offer to those customers. If those customers value additional value-added services, then they're going to respond positively to that. If not, then I'm going to incur additional cost and I will get no benefit to that. I also have to determine what are my new commissions and renew commissions that I'm going to pay to the producers for driving new business and renew business into the agency. So this is really the customer management screen. And then finally, we've got the financial management screen, lots of data, not lots of decisions, but all these numbers will be changing as I make decisions within the simulation and can change the performance of the business overall. So that's a real quick 15-minute overview of all the different areas of the competition. I guess, Diane, what might make sense now is to open it up to see if anybody's got any questions on the simulation itself or how we try to drive this competition in certain ways.
Great.
Diane, it's Ryan. I do have a question on this.
Okay.
At the beginning, you said the scenario was that the uncle is handing down the agency, correct?
That's how
Would
we set it
it
up.
be possible, or do you, and this is obviously open to anybody, but if he's just handing it down, would it be another piece that you could put into how are they going to get the financing if he's not just handing it down and he wants to sell it? Have you guys thought about that? Is that a piece that you even want to play with like InsureBank or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, and it's definitely a component that you could work in to the process that you come up with. We've never had a need to do that because we've never had a client who says, hey, I would like to start from the financing of a business that's being handed down, but I can see from your perspective where that might be a great discussion to have with some of the students going through this. So yeah, you can set up the starting scenario any way you want. So I could almost see where, maybe in week 0 before the competition even starts, you run them through, kind of, all right, your uncle's handing down the business. What do you do before you even get your hands on the business? And
right.
You walk them through that process and that thinking.
Jeff, one of the questions that Bob had is, could this be done online? And so I know that Jeff said that traditionally they do this in like a 2-day workshop. We would be doing it in a virtual basis. So what we kind of envision is that the team would go online, they would enter their decisions, and then Prism would fast forward it. We do think that in order for the colleges to be able to make really good decisions, they're going to need guidance in person from some local agents.
Correct. Yeah, it would be run online. We would send every team a separate link file that when they double-clicked it, typed in username and password, they would see up on their screen exactly what you're seeing now, and they would have full control to navigate and enter decisions.
Great. Anybody else have any questions on just the competition itself and like how it's the data is done, not the logistics of how we would do it?
This is Clark. I just had a question. If I'm trying to follow along with what triggers the action. In other words, I understand that if you hire 6 people and then there's going to be a cost to that, which is measured against what revenues you have. But what's the sales equation or whatever that drives these commission numbers and things like that?
Yeah, well, that's where all the mathematical modeling is going on behind the scenes. So to use your example, if you hire somebody, then that means that you have more producer hours available to go out and knock on doors. And as your team has more hours available to knock on doors, behind the scene there's an assumption that a certain number of knocks leads to a certain number of appointments, and a certain number of appointments lead to a certain number of quotes. So all of that stuff is being modeled behind the scenes.
Okay, so it's not that I hire one producer who's better than another or is more productive than another. It's really that's not as much as what you're trying to point out here is the actual boxes that you put together to create all this.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point. We do offer you 2 different alternatives for hiring. You can hire a new producer, an inexperienced hire, and then what we do also is we allow them to hire experienced producers. So, and if you hire an experienced producer, they come in with higher skills.
Right.
And if they have higher skills and they're knocking on more doors, they're going to drive in more new business than somebody who has low skills knocking on the same number of doors. So you do have the ability to bring in people that have accelerated learning and accelerated performance.
Good.
So
Thanks.
what the competition does is you inherit an agency, the team has to make all these different decisions. They make their decisions, they submit them in the software, and then they fast forward it a year. And then we say, here's what it looks like a year out. Here's where you are compared to all the other competition or other college teams. And then do you want to make any changes and tweaks to it, just like any business does from year to year? Pretty exciting.
Yeah, once all the teams are done, they click this done button. And they might be given some warnings. For example, if they're bankrupt, they won't be able to save it. However, if there's no warnings, then this is what they leave up on the screen, and then the next time they log in, it would be advanced, and this would say round 2, 2022, and we would then have sent them their PDF files of income statement, balance sheet, and newspaper that you can then use to debrief.
Do the students have any educated information to start entering this information, or do they just start with trial and error? And I'm sorry, I'm echoing. I hope that doesn't come across that way to you all.
Yeah, I heard that. That's fine. Yeah, there is a case study guide, and maybe, Diane, you can send that out. I believe you have a copy of it.
Yes.
So there's a 20-page manual that all students should read before they even step foot, in the room with their team. So that's the pre-work.
Yeah. Jeff, I have a question. Is this iPad tablet compatible?
You said iPad and tablet compatible?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as they have an RDP client on the tablet or on the iPad, it should work on a phone. I've had it on my phone. I've had it on a tablet before. So yes. Now it's easier with a keyboard because a lot of the entries tend to be numbers, but you can run it if you want.
Great. Another question is, can you give some insight into some competitions or workshops you've done, like whose audience, what's their takeaway?
Oh, great. Yeah. So the key learning points tend to be, well, first of all, a big step back. Most of the times when we run these exercises, we're running them for people that are 3 or 5 years plus within an agency. And then sometimes we even run it for senior people who are perhaps 15 or 20 years, and we focus on different things. So you can teach a lot of different levels with the simulation. Primarily for the more inexperienced people or the more junior people, the key learnings are gaining an understanding of the big picture. Most have come in through one specific function or area of the business, and that's typically sales, but making sure that they understand, that it's not just about driving sales, it's about a lot of different things, so the big picture. Two is about having strategic conversations about the longer term, so more long-term thinking, strategic thinking, and building a business plan, as opposed to, a lot of times business owners, business managers, people will get involved in thinking about what are we going to do this week or this month. This exercise forces you to think in 12, 24, and 36-month increments, so it gets you better at strategic thinking. Obviously, the financials are a big aha. One, in terms of just understanding what the P&L and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement, are and why they're important. But secondly, and this is probably, simulation's strongest contribution in terms of learning, I can see cause and effect. So I can immediately with the simulation see how hiring an extra person drives the P&L, or how changing my receivables policy drives my balance sheet. So financial acumen is another key takeaway. And I'd say probably the next one is around teamwork. And this is something that you'd have to be driving more at the local level, because you're not going to get it through through an online portal. But the ability for teams to work better for individuals to work better in teams. And so when we do this for Northwestern University, where we have teams of students, running a competition like this over 10 weeks, we actually will put them through some good teaming stuff up front, where they have to develop a team charter. We have them each do a DISC profile. They share that profile with each other. So there's a whole lot of learning that can come on the soft skills as well. So the simulation itself is kind of a very left brain activity, quantitative activity. However, when you're sitting across from other individuals and having arguments and debates and discussions, you're engaging a lot of the right brain as well. And so if you capitalize on that, you can have a really good left brain, right brain challenge that drives a lot of key learnings in terms of soft skills as well.
We have another question. Bob, if you don't mind asking it, because his question is, can the analytics be adjusted prior to the competition? And I don't know what you're thinking. So, Bob, can you expand on that?
Sure. I was thinking in terms of, it sounds like the actual marketplace is set in the system, and that's where you start. And I don't know if, I guess one question that I didn't type in there is, does each team start at the same place, or do they all have a mix of analytics that they are dealing with? Like one might be challenged by a lack of cash, another just might not have any producers, or do they all have?
Great question. Great question. We start all of our competitions so that all the teams are at the same starting block. So they have the same strengths, same weaknesses. They have the same number of producers, same debt. Everything's identical. And the reason why I found over the years that that's important is because I want teams to take the same starting situation, look at it differently, act upon it differently, and end up with different results. And then at the very end, what we do is we do an after action review where each team stands up and says, okay, we looked at our agency at the beginning and we pursued this strategy, and they can then hear how another team looked at the identical situation, came up with different observations, and went along a different path. So for comparison and contrasting at the end of this, where a lot of learning can occur, it's important they start off in the same position. In terms of tweaking the marketplace can always be tweaked. The only caution is you got to know why you're tweaking it. Is there a learning, is there something you're trying to accomplish in terms of a learning objective? But because every time you tweak it, that then involves some cost to go back and do some testing to make sure that the market is still balanced and that the agencies can still make money reasonably, or so we just need to go back and rebalance the marketplace.
Okay, that's good.
Great. Any other questions on the competition itself? If you have any on the logistics on how we would do it if we decide as a group to go forward, let's keep those till a little bit later. But any questions for Jeff on competition? Well, thank you, Jeff, for your time. Everybody else stay on the line. But Jeff, if you want to drop off, if you want to give me back the presentation, that'll be